I've never been a huge fan of Carnotaurus. My personal playstyle generally favors more agile animals, where ambush is only one part of the larger hunt. I enjoy pursuit. I enjoy wearing down my target over time and relishing in their increasing fear as they realize that they are not going to escape. Carno's playstyle is none of those things. Hunts with Carno are fast-paced. Strike and kill quickly, or risk losing too much stamina or blood to continue fighting. In most cases, the ambush is important to start and quickly end the hunt in seconds. Regardless, my young Carno would begin life as many juveniles do, as a scavenger. I discovered a dino carcass at the edge of a small, generally safe body of water. The stego calling in the distance hinted at what likely happened. I wasn't upset though. I had food, and the water had been made safe once more. Too small to pluck out the organs immediately, I made do with enough meat to hold me over while I grew enough that I could get the nutritious bits myself. By the time I had grown a little, my snack had been scouted by a pair of small Trudon. They didn't have venom yet, so I was unconcerned as they tickled my Carno. While they might have been a fairly easy snack, these dino organs would more easily sate my hunger and fill my diets. So I chose to ignore them and continued about my business. When they finally realized that I wasn't going to fight back and clearly didn't care about their existence at all, they took advantage of my generosity and filled their own diets as well. They couldn't have plucked the organs themselves after all, and if this Carno wasn't worried about tiny, compy-sized scavengers, they might as well indulge. Sometime later, I had followed the migrations to the Delta River. This was Tenno territory, and my travels had left me dangerously low on food. Unfortunately, the first Tennos that I found were large, in a herd, and blocking my way out of the main zone. I could have turned around. Perhaps found another way out of the canyon, but both options were risky at best, and a death sentence at worst. I might as well hope that fate would be kind and encourage the Tennos to offer me safe passage through their midst. I stepped into view and offered a well-known greeting in Evrima. The two-call, teabag, wiggle dance, and nod of peace. When they responded peacefully enough, I very carefully moved forward and squeezed myself against the canyon wall, trying to give them space while moving as carefully as I could through their midst. Safely through the other side, they let me know that I wasn't welcome to stick around, now that I had passed by. Fine by me. I just wanted to get out of this canyon and try to find food and water. Once through, I headed for the riverbank. Though my food situation was more pressing, my water levels weren't exactly ideal either. The Delta River is notoriously full of dinos. In fact, I don't think I've ever gone there and not seen at least one. There are a few safe places to drink. This is not one. Lucky for me, a good chunk of the dino population is also inexperienced with lunging, as they have spent the majority of their existence simply wandering about on land on Spiro, stealing kills from everyone else. I was growing desperate. I hadn't seen any other Tennos, and even if I had, I was much too small to fight them. I have this saying on the new map, and it's something that I've almost always found to be true. Gateway will provide. Every time I've come close to starvation, something falls into my lap to hold me over and keep me alive. Sometimes it's simply a small supply of frogs. Sometimes it's a random Trudon carcass. This time, it was a dead AI Tenno. Sure, the organs had rotted, but it was food, and that's all that really mattered. After rolling in a nice muddy puddle, I decided to gamble with my life once more by drinking in the delta. What did I say about most Dino players? Having healed from my second Dino encounter, I moved on to the swamp. There's not many options for prey there. Currently, the swamp is home to Dryo and Stego migrations. And since Dryos are extremely few and far between, well, let's just say I don't know why on earth I decided to wander around the swamp, other than to find a nice shallow spot for a safe drink. Unfortunately for me, there's no such thing as true safety on Gateway. I came around a bush to spot several adult Ceratos. This is why stamina is important. I was a sub, so I had more than I would as an adult. But since Cerato stamina is nothing to sneeze at, I did the only thing I could. Run. I knew they would track my footprints. I knew they would be close behind. And I knew that I couldn't fight the four of them as a sub Carno. Shallow water doesn't leave prints, though it is certainly much louder to walk in than dry land. But I had to do what I had to do to try and escape my pursuers. They weren't far behind. I stopped momentarily to try and gauge which direction they were coming from, only for them to appear out of a nearby bush. Nah, we're not doing this. Not today. On I went. I could still hear them moving along behind me, and my stamina was getting lower by the second. I could see my short Carno life flashing before my eyes as I hit zero, and did the only thing I could. Lay down in a bush, right beside the water, and pray. They didn't find me. Either they ran out of stamina, or they simply lost my trail. But I managed to regain my full stamina bar and roll in the mud for good measure, before leaving the swamp by way of the beach. Strangely, out in the water, I spotted a very fast-swimming raptor. I don't know. This doesn't look like their normal swim speed, but maybe I'm mistaken. Either way, I was pretty hungry. Getting close to desperately so, actually. And these raptors looked like a decent meal if I could just catch them. It has been a hot minute since I last played Carno. All the way back in Update 6, which, incidentally, was also the first time I ever actually played Carno at all on Evrima. Regardless, I needed food, and I wasn't going back to the Ceratos. Have I mentioned yet that bucking currently only works about 25% of the time? The other 75%, pressing the button results in nothing more than your dino standing there looking dumb, while a raptor claws the absolute heck out of their side. These raptors were smart, too. Happy to hit a pounce and then back off and let me bleed. Standing still in the open would have been my best option, but desperation had set in with my low food. I couldn't let them escape, or I very well might starve to death. This would ultimately be my downfall. All my idiot running about trying to nibble their tails only increased my blood loss. Sure, there was plenty of mud nearby, but in the increasing darkness and with my low blood pool, I couldn't risk walking around to look for it. I could only lay down and hope that the raptors had taken enough hits to call off the hunt themselves. My stamina was abysmal, and I could hear my heart racing. My bleed began to heal just in time, but now I had even more problems. My stamina was gone, my food was near empty, and I was deep in the swamp with nothing but frogs and serratos to keep me company. Gateway will provide. Frogs it is. Some heavy healing, a lot of frogs, and some scavenging later, I'd made my way back to Highlands. The swamp is beautiful and eerie, but it is too empty right now to sustain a Carno. I found and proceeded to steal a dead raptor from a smaller pair of Carnos. They hadn't killed it. An adult Carno that was hiding nearby had, so I didn't feel too bad taking it for myself. My needs were great, and I wasn't going to continue onward and risk starvation again. Stomach mostly filled, I made my way through the cave that leads from the lake down to J Sector. Ahead, I had heard a pack of raptors, and though my previous encounter hadn't exactly gone well, I was much less desperate and a bit larger now. I have found that sometimes in Avrima, a tiny bit of kindness sometimes snowballs into weirdness. It's never intended to go further than a polite hello in passing, especially when it comes to fresh spawns. But sometimes that hello gives them the impression that I would enjoy their company in the longer term. This is the story within the story of a very loyal fresh spawn galley. Little man had, unknown to me, been killed minutes earlier by the very pack of raptors that I was marching determinedly toward. When I did not try to kill him as he passed by, he decided I should be warned of the danger ahead. Realizing he could not stop me, he raced ahead. I assumed to scout the area, see if the danger was still there. I knew it was. I knew where they would be hiding. I was prepared. These raptors had a plan. Keep my eyes on the ones just out of reach. Allow the third a sneaky pounce. To their credit, it actually worked quite well. One pounce, though, wouldn't be enough. They would need to do more than that to take down a fresh adult Carno. And then he was back. The galley came racing out of nowhere and kicked one of the raptors from behind. This determined little galley had latched himself onto me and wasn't letting go. And then there was another. What on earth was happening? Where and why and how was there a second one now trying to help me as well? Moments later, both galleys had perished. Unfortunate for them, but now I could focus on the fight. They shouldn't have gotten involved. I'm not the greatest Carno, but I can handle this on my own. And then there he was, the galley's triumphant return. It was short-lived. My blood pool was getting low. Not so low that I was truly worried, but low enough I wasn't willing to go running around anymore. I needed to be patient. Let the raptors make the mistake. And then I saw him. No longer happy with his weak galley form, the tiny gladiator had respawned as a stego. Why? My guy, you're adorable. You're loyal. But you are a Montague, and I am a Capulet. When I said earlier that being friendly in Abrima sometimes results in extreme weirdness, this is what I meant. Here I am, a nearly full-grown Carno, being defended by literal babies from another literal baby in a battle to the death. Carno this update has what I have deemed the insta-charge. Sure, it can only be used every 20 seconds, but it is extremely volatile, especially for raptors. When the raptor walked between my rock and the wall, a plan materialized in my head. There was plenty of space between my spot on the rock and the rock wall to set off a charge. I just had to be patient. If you're wondering what happened to the gladiator, I honestly have no idea. As soon as the last raptor died, the rest of the pack backed off. I ate my fill, and I left him behind. Anyway, finally fully grown, I found 2 other Carnos and we set out to hunt. We had found a small herd of Tennos, though most appeared to be AI, based on the way they ran and ditched the actual Tenno player as soon as we attacked. Poor guy. Betrayed by the computers that should have protected him. He got lucky though, and a fresh adult stego was happy to step in and play bodyguard. Too low on stamina to pursue the Tenno as it fled, we were forced to give up the hunt. The Stego, though, had other plans. In typical Stego fashion, he had to be generally annoying for quite some time, before finally growing bored with his game. Once the Stego finally backed off, we found ourselves a freshly killed Tenno and filled up our food. We headed onward to get water. As we approached the generally safe area, though, we discovered the Highland Lake herd had moved and claimed it as their own. Because of course they did. This was karma for not annihilating the gladiator before, wasn't it? As annoying as the herd was, I'm fairly well versed in this area of Gateway. If they were going to guard the main entrance to the water, well, I'd just have to go around the back. After watching to ensure they hadn't noticed me, I filled up my water without trouble. I had to wonder why my packmates didn't join me there. I was clearly drinking without being noticed. Might as well get your fill. But I didn't dare speak and tell them to get down here, as that would bring the attention of the herd. Just before my water was filled, I was finally spotted. Silly things. Sometime later, I joined up with Acronym to cause a bit of chaos. Entering Highlands Lake, I was surprised by a Serato that clearly thought I was alone. The appearance of a second Carno took him so heavily by surprise himself that he managed to leap to his death while we were taking stock of the situation. A second Serato showed his face, and we, quite happy to do a bit of population control, ended his very existence without much trouble. As night fell, we began to make our way back to J Sector once more. We had heard a Tenno in the distance, and needed some organs to finish setting up our diet. We didn't anticipate running into him in the passage, though. He certainly wasn't expecting to run into two adult Carnos either. Although he was smart enough to take advantage of the terrain, there wasn't much he could do against us. Even after tanking several stuns, we were fine, and he succumbed to his fate. With full bellies and our chosen diets active, we went to get water. In the Isle, though, sometimes you are the predator, and sometimes you are the prey. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for more content just like this. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.